Hello, thanks for tuning into my channel. Today I want to do a short video on how to pass the ADI standards check, or if you're a PDI, how to pass the ADI Part 3 test. So as an audit trainer, I get asked a lot of questions about, are there any magic tips you can give me to help me pass the test and just be successful at it? So I thought I'd put a short video together just to help those of you that are in doubt as to what it is you're supposed to be doing to pass. So the first thing I would say is you just need to keep things simple. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share two examples. Recently, last week, I had a couple of standards checks, one passed and one failed. So if I just share with you the story, what happens, and then you decide which one you think would have passed. So the first one, so let me just look at my notes. So yeah, the first standards check that we had, the lesson plan was to deal with double mini roundabouts. The pupil on the previous lesson had been a little bit hesitant, and I think the main problem was, according to the instructor, was they were trying to treat each roundabout as a separate roundabout. And so anyway, they'd agreed that they were going to set this as a goal and they were going to go and do that for the lesson. So the lesson started and the pupil had to negotiate some roundabouts on the way to the practice area where these mini roundabouts were. And on one of the roundabouts, the pupil straight lined the roundabout. There was no other traffic on there and there were no road markings, but there were two lanes on approach to this roundabout. So yeah, the pupil straight lined that one. Anyway, they carried on, and then there was another roundabout a little bit further on and they did the same there. And this time there were road markings and there was another vehicle on the roundabout behind them in lane 2. They were in lane 1. They didn't affect them, but they would have raised their eyebrows. The other driver would definitely be alerted to what the people had just done. So anyway, they proceeded and headed to the mini roundabouts and delivered the lesson. So that's story 1. Story 2, and these are true. They're actually true stories. I'm just not sharing obviously the names of the instructors. The other example I'm going to use is another ADI. Took a pupil, and the plan was to look at a fault that the pupil had made the previous week on the previous lesson, which basically what had happened is on this particular lesson there was a set of traffic lights, a pedestrian crossing I should say, so let's say a puffing crossing, so light controlled crossing, and then a short distance after was a roundabout, and the pupil was waiting at the red traffic lights, and so when the lights turned green they proceeded through the crossing and failed to give way at the roundabout, so the instructor had to jump on the dual controls because there was a car coming and they hadn't looked, and also they were trying to go ahead in a left only lane. So there was a couple of problems there with their lane choice, and of course they misunderstood the road markings. Okay, so they didn't respond to road markings. So that was what they were going to do. They'd explain that to the examiner and the lesson started. Once they got going, straight out of the test centre there was a little bit of a hill, and the pupil rolled back and stalled the engine. So the instructor said, "Are you okay? Try that again," and they carried on their way. Short distance after, at another T-junction, pupil did the same thing. Stalled the engine, slight roll back. This time the instructor had to intervene because there was a car behind and just jumped on the brakes and said, "Would you like some help here?" and got going. And then as they got going, he said, "Would you like to have a look at that? Because there's a couple of times you stalled. Would you like to look at some hill starts?" And the pupil said, "Yeah." And they found a little turning, The instructor knew where there was a slight incline, and they went and practiced that and gave them some help. They talked about the POM routine and identified the cause of the stall, and basically the pupil just wasn't finding the bite point, panicked a little bit and just sort of brought the clutch up too quickly. So they worked on that and had a couple of attempts and got that sorted, and the pupils asked, would you like to just try another one, go around the block and do that again? So as they went around the block, there was a parked car on their side of the road, oncoming vehicle, and the pupil attempted to squeeze through a gap that just wasn't wide enough, and the instructor stopped them and dealt with that and explained, yeah, do you feel you had enough room there? And the pupil said, well, yeah, I thought so. And the instructor's like, no, you didn't. So then he said, well, would you like to, we could look at that today. We could look at some meeting situations and who's got priority. And the pupil said, yeah. So he went around the block. They had another practice at the hill start. And then they went and found somewhere. They agreed at first, should we go somewhere and find somewhere we could find more parked cars, that you practice on that. So practice that. And then before the instructor knew it, the examiner just said, hey, we've got 10 minutes left. If you could start making your way back to the test centre. So they did. They never got to do the original plan of going to that, where the roundabout was, where the pedestrian crossing was and the lane markings and all that. They never got to do that at all. So my question is, out of those two examples, which one would pass, which one would fail? So I guess it's going to be no surprise to you that example one, where they went to do the double mini roundabouts and worked on hesitation, which they did do and did well, that one failed. Because the pupil's needs were not addressed. The pupil has got a habitual fault of straight lining roundabouts. It hasn't been mentioned, hasn't been analysed, no remedial action put into place. So therefore that has failed because the risk hasn't been addressed and the lesson has not been adapted. Compare that to lesson 2, which is a clear pass. That's going to pass all day long, even though they never did the original plan. Okay, because what the instructor's done there is adapt as soon as it became necessary to adapt, and has addressed the needs of the pupil. So this is what we mean when we say keep it simple. Keeping it simple is all about focusing on what your pupil needs and deal with what comes up in front of you at the time. That's what you got to do that. So my suggestion, if you've got a standards check coming up, or a part 3, go into that test with a pupil that is midway through their training, not a complete beginner, not test standard, part trained, maybe done about 20 hours would be a good indication. Someone that you know will make mistakes. Just pick a need, one fault that your pupil has made either just before the test, before you go to your standards check that they've done on the way there, or from the previous lesson, and address that. So start the lesson having identified the faults. Encourage your pupil to self-analyse and get information out of them as to what the risk was, what caused them to do that, because we want to get to the root cause. So why did you do that? What would be the risk of doing that? What would be the consequences? What is the danger of doing that? And most importantly, what would you do differently next time? And would you like to go and practice? And how much help would you like? So we're using the see it, say it, sort it method, the identify, analyse, remedy. So my advice is just say that again. Start your lesson with one simple thing that you can go and work on. That will keep your talking to a minimum. You can get out on the road. Once you're out on the road, adapt. So watch your pupil, pick up on what they're doing, because when they make a fault, that is now the need of the lesson. Talk to your pupil about it, analyse it, ask them if they would like to work on that again, and then go and do it. Keep them safe while you're doing it, so don't allow them to cause danger. or inconvenience or affect other road users, and you will be on the right track. What you don't want to do is have a big elaborate plan and a carefully planned route on where you're going to go and all of that. Just stick to your pupil, focus on the faults. So that really concludes this video, really. I did have a question that I was asked the other day from in fact this morning I got a text from an instructor that I'm helping, and they had a question which I just share with you because I said I was going to do a video, and I said, hey, I'll put it on the video and then you can watch that. So their plan, and they've got a part 3 coming up soon, they are planning to turning right at busier junctions. So they're thinking like turning right at traffic lights. There was a particular problem that the pupil had, and they're going to go and do that because that is what the pupil needs. Now the question is do I need to prompt the pupil on the roundabouts on the way to the practice area? So my answer to that would be, one, has your pupil done roundabouts before? If so, what could you reasonably expect them to do wrong? Is there a problem with roundabouts? So if the fact that I'm being asked the question is, do I need to prompt them? Why are you asking that? Is there something you know that they will do wrong? Will they be in the incorrect lane? Will they miss gaps and hesitate? Because if that's what you're worried about, then that's what your lesson should be on. Focus on that because there's a need. So maybe start with that in your lesson and then work on to the busier junctions such as traffic lights. Or if your pupil is fine with roundabouts and they've done it before, just give them directions. Direct them and allow the fault to happen. So let them make the mistake, and when they make the mistake, now you can talk about it and address it and adapt the plan. So you might not get to your traffic lights. You might let them do a roundabout, let them make the mistake, deal with the fault, and spend some time working on that. And if they get it and they understand, then move on to your planned lesson of traffic lights. And if they don't, spend some time, more time with the roundabouts to help them doing that. So I hope that answers your question. We can of course chat about that later. But any of you out there watching this, whether I'm teaching you already or you're just watching this on YouTube, if you want to get some help, I'm happy to do like an hour's Zoom consultation with you. I've been helping a lot of people recently with that. So just get in touch with me, leave me a message. If you go to the website How to Drive, fill out the contact form, you can do it there, or you can just leave me a message in the comments on this video. But yeah, just get in touch with me, and we can do a Zoom and have a chat and answer your questions, and do it that way. So, or alternatively, if you'd like some in-car training and you can get to Norwich, again, message me, come up, we can arrange a time, get out in car. So yeah, that is my video. Thank you for watching. As always, please like if you like the video and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. And please comment, what do you want to see next? What kind of ideas you've got? What do you need help with? Because I will be happy to help. Anyway, thank you very much.